The Minnesota Vikings are pretty much the best team in North American team sports to never win a championship. Welcome to Before We Die with Jesse and Thor on Purple Daily and Score North.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Labor Day. Happy Labor Day, gents. I was sabotaged, so we were recording this a little bit late. I was on time for the record, mind you, not at all high maintenance, but then, I'm thinking it was it's Packers week. There was probably some sort of rivalry. They didn't want us coming out here talking about the Vikings, talking about Thor guaranteeing a victory for the Minnesota Vikings this Sunday, 6 days away for the Vikes. Thor, let's hear the guarantee, baby.
Well, yeah, I think the Vikings are going to win. I've said that since we started the show. I think they're going to win in the opener, and I think that they're going to go 12-5 this season. I think this is a really good spot to get the Packers, where you get them at home in the very first game of the Kevin O'Connell era. Packers don't have tape on it, at least how this specific team has taken to O'Connell's scheme. Obviously, the schemes are much different, including on defense, than they've been in the seasons leading up. So, and then the Packers, of course, without Devontae Adams, feel like this is a really good spot for the Vikings.
You know what? I don't hate it. Again, this is Before We Die. Just before we die, we want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl, but we want to start that off by beating the Packers in the opener. It doesn't get any sweeter than that, you guys. I mean, do we have some sort of countdown mechanism going? You guys working on that? Are we wearing purple every single day this week? What are we doing to really ignite the fuel and the fire for Sunday?
Well, I'm excited to get with my boys and watch the Vikings again. Like, that's sort of our tradition on Fall Sundays with the Vikings. So I'm just really excited for that. And yeah, you're ticking down the time. I mean, we got 6 days left. So yeah, I mean, we're almost there though. We are almost there after a very long off season.
I'm doing nothing but consuming any type of drink that is purple, whether it be purple Gatorade, purple or grape water additives.
Purple drink?
Quite literally drinking the purple Kool-Aid is what you're saying.
Literally drinking the purple Kool-Aid. How important is week one? I think it's incredibly important. To me, it's very important to win week one because of what you're facing week two. Going on the road at Philadelphia in week two, that's not going to be easy. And right. The NFL, things can compound pretty quickly. I know the Rams went over a month last year without winning a game, and they still won the Super Bowl. But if I'm the new Vikings regime and a Vikings fan, which of course I am, I really wouldn't feel good if the team starts 0-2. So I think winning week one is vitally important.
I think you need it for starters, the confidence. You need to get that confidence built under KOC, under this new offense, under this new scheme that everybody is so incredibly excited for, and rightfully so. I mean, just to get that momentum going in your favor, you need it because it's the Packers. As I'd mentioned before, again, guys, note the purple. I am a Minnesota Vikings fan. I just think that Green Bay is going to be a tough team to beat this season in the division. So I think getting that win over Green Bay is really going to be very telling as to what your season might look like. And then in addition, you just want to beat the Packers. Like, please, that's all I want. I could honest to God care less if you lose the rest of them. Just beat Green Bay because it just feels so good when you do.
Well, Jesse, I put my prediction out. Have we heard your prediction for Sunday's game yet?
I will pick the Minnesota Vikings. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling, it's too early for me to be too down on them. Like I said, I'll let them prove me wrong when I say that they're going to not maybe win 12 games, but I think Minnesota's going to beat Green Bay. I think it's going to be a good game. I mean, that's the other thing. I really do just want a really good game. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Maybe like kind of an LSU Florida State type of tangle, right? Like, I love college football, guys. I love it. Love it. But yeah, I think Minnesota comes out victorious.
1,000%. Yeah. And, if you go by what the boys in the desert, as the people in the media say, what the boys in the desert are saying about this game, it would be indicative of the same, that we're going to get a really good game. The Packers opened as very small favorites. That line right now is the Packers -1.5. You can get the Vikings money line for even money. I feel like that's a pretty good bet, but I mean, either way, this one is, it's essentially a pick 'em either way you want to go.
Let's go. I love it. Rivalry week, Packers week, opening week, all the good stuff. We, of course, also record on Thursday. So we're going to dive into the nitty gritty, get into the weeds a little bit more about that specific game on Sunday come Thursday's record. But I also want to talk first, guys, I need to make a formal public apology because on Sunday nights when it's not football season, I'm watching a little thing called Game of Thrones. Currently, it's the House of Dragons. Now, that being said, you guys might understand where I'm going with this because last week when the Minnesota Vikings acquired Jalen Reagor, I kept going Rhaegar because that's kind of like the theme of Game of Thrones. Rhaegar, Dragor, all this stuff. So I apologize, Jalen Reagor. I will not go Rhaegar. That's on me. That's on me. I'm going to be better. But that is my formal apology. Will you guys accept that on behalf of our audience before we die?
Well, I'd like to go the other way. I'm not apologizing for it. I've always pronounced it Rhaegar, going back to his days at TCU.
It's spelled Rhaegar, right?
Well, hey, I'm sorry. That's the way that I like to pronounce it. You know, I mean, it just is what it is. There will be no apologies for me for my pronouncement of my preferred pronouncement of Jalen Rhaegar's name.
Ross, what's your deciding factor? How are you going with it?
I'll accept the apology because I know how hard you work. I know you've put in hours of film. You've reviewed the tape. You've made notes down. You're dictating to yourself that you will do better.
Yes.
You're diligent about your perfection and getting better and improving your game. So I'll accept it. I'll take it.
One thing I would say is so there's this concept in psychology where if you heal yourself, you heal the generations before you and after you as well. My father was the person who throughout my life would pronounce Patrick Waugh's name Patrick Roy.
Oh no.
He was one of those, he was always mispronouncing people's name or swapping out the first names, everything like that. Am I perfect? No. Have I healed myself enough to potentially heal my father, heal my sons to come after me? My psychologist would say yes.
Yeah. I love it. Again, so Jalen Reagor, that's an exciting addition to the Minnesota Vikings. More exciting Vikings news coming out during this Packer week. Sounds like Irv Smith Jr. good to go for Sunday, you guys. How much do you think that's going to really help the Minnesota Vikings having him healthy, ready to go? We all know how excited we were to see him at camp. He gets injured, but looks like it won't be as devastating, obviously, as it was last year when he wasn't able to play.
It's utterly crucial on multiple different fronts. First of all, the guys that you would have to play, if not for Irv Smith, the Vikings have one of the worst TE depths in the entire NFL. So it's huge. Just getting Irv, Irv is a singular player and how they intend to use him this coming season. It's also huge in that you don't have to have, a sub-league average tight end starting for you. And then the depth concerns, even after that, becoming more precipitous. And then the also huge thing about it is the Vikings coaching staff has talked pretty openly this offseason about guys that they were looking at that they could build schemes around to uptick their production. You don't have to do that as much with Jefferson, although they're going to do all sorts of fun things with Jefferson, because Jefferson, like we talked about, he's going to gain separation no matter what. He's going to be productive no matter what. But there's other guys on the team where the scheme and the way that you use them play in and play out, it can either tick up their production or maybe is the reasoning why they have not played so well in their career to this point. Irv Smith was one of those guys that the coaching staff shouted out that they think that they could scheme for. And Irv Smith is a scheme-specific player. He's a usage-specific player. And I think if you use him correctly, that's where you're going to get the money back for that round 2 pick that you originally invested in him.
Yeah, I think it's big to Thor's point just about there being a pretty big lack of tight end depth on the Vikings roster, and nobody at the tight end position can do what Irv Smith can do. So the fact that they should have him back for week 1, to me, is incredibly important. It's big for Kirk Cousins in the passing game. It's great to have that extra weapon. But in all honesty, Jesse and Thor, I think the biggest thing will be just getting him through the game. Can he take a few hits and get up and feel okay so the Vikings can be reasonably confident that he'll make it through the rest of this season largely unscathed? Will he get injured a time or two? Yeah, he probably will. Everybody does. But will he be able to play through it, and will the Vikings be able to use him week in and week out and rely on him? I still think that's to be determined. We don't know that. Sadly, we don't. I don't think you can think at all whether he is somebody you can rely on. That was a really clunky way of saying that, but we don't know that yet. So I think it's important for the Vikings to get him out there, take a few hits, and see him stay on the field.
1,000%. And we've talked about how Irv is on the way smaller end for a traditional inline tight end. He has the durability questions. How would he hold up over a 17-game schedule facing those war daddy edge rushers on the edge in the NFL? you do want to see that long term. In this game, you wonder if, because he's coming off the injury, because he hasn't gotten as much practice time, will they be even more selective in their usage with him? You would think that on the passing downs, for sure, you want him in there. On the running downs, are we going to see way more of, for instance, Johnny Munt? I think that's something that you could look for in week one. But Ross's point is a really good one. Irv needs to stay on the field this year.
Yeah, no, you guys took the words right out of my mouth, so I won't be redundant in it. But that was my biggest concern, is him missing some of that preseason time. And him, I mean, is it going to be hard for him to get up to that speed? I would say probably not, because he's a professional and he's one of the best in his positions for this squad, especially. But yeah, it'll be curious. Again, health is going to be very crucial for him, along with the rest of your Minnesota Vikings. Also coming out on Monday, Vikings have their captains named: Kirk Cousins, Delvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Brian O'Neill, Patrick Peterson, Harrison Smith, Eric Kendricks, and CJ Ham as the lone special teams captain.
It would have been shorter to announce who wasn't a captain.
Yes.
I know, right? Hey, O'Connell said 20 players received a vote to become a captain this year, so that's kind of interesting, right?
Did you or I get a vote, Jesse?
I think Jalen Reagor probably voted. Just kidding. I did that on purpose. Poking the bear, guys, because that's what I do.
Of those 20 players that got a vote, how many only got a vote because they voted for themselves?
100%.
You know, like,
I mean, that's my move right there. I'm for sure putting my name in.
Kirk Cousins definitely voted for himself. You know what? I want to see Kirk Cousins' ballot. I want to confirm that he didn't write his own name down until I'll believe it.
That's true. It feels like there might have been some what am I trying to say?
Stuffing the ballot.
Stuffing the ballot. Yes.
Yeah. Was Ryan Wright voting for himself? There's nobody else voted for him.
Well, Paul Allen, I saw his ballot. He definitely voted for Ryan Wright.
Definitely.
So maybe he was on two.
6'4", 240 or 6'3", 240, right?
He was bigger than Pete Burcich coming up. I do recall that.
Amazing. You know, speaking of like getting things in, fantasy football draft, you guys. This is my that's the other favorite time of year. Thor, I know you backed out of this fun media skull league. Thank you for just handing me the trophy for that reason only. You guys big fantasy. How many leagues? How many leagues are we in? What are we talking?
Well, I'm in a whole dang lot of them, but you have to remember I play college fantasy football too. So I'm probably in, and I have to say no to a bunch just because of how, but I'm in probably like 6 or 7 NFL ones, and then I'm in probably 10 different college ones. So
side note, I didn't even know there is a college fantasy football. What are you talking?
I have so much to teach you, Jesse.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we got to get you into a college fantasy football.
I mean, I'll crush that. I will crush it. Okay. ISU the whole time.
We'll see.
God, we should make a bet. ISU Iowa game coming up here too.
Oh,
nice film the Hawkeyes gave the Cyclones to work with. By the way,
well, hey, thanks, appreciate it. But becoming the first team since before the year 2000 to score exactly 7 points without an offensive touchdown. It was fabulous. And the 2 safeties in the field goal. We have a couple days to think about our wager for that game. Let's discuss this on the Thursday show. I will have something prepared.
Let's do that on Thursday. I want you guys to do a wager very similar to what mayors and governors do when their teams take on each other. So let's make the loser do something. You brought up something in conversation with us, Jesse, going back and forth when we put so much work into the pre-planning of what we're going to talk about. Yeah. And you had some entrants come in that I thought were pretty funny.
Yes.
Did you guys happen to see some of the Vikings themed fantasy team names that came across, and did you like any of them?
I mean, the popular one is obviously all about Kirk, right? Whether it's Kirk ain't my cousin, Thielen up my cousin with Adam Thielen. Those seem to be very common, big favorites. Thielen for cooking was another one we got. Bojack Norseman came in. All of them pretty good. Straight cash homies. That's a classic throwback. Yep. Can't go wrong there. See, I'm into the throwbacks too. I do appreciate picking out my, a guy that I drafted and turning his name somehow into something. I've got a Thielen. That was another big popular one. I'm also going classics. I like Smoot love boat rentals or something like that, right? Like, let's just throw it back to the most cringy time in Vikings history. I think those are always kind of fun, but I appreciate the entrance. I appreciate folks tossing out their names. What did you guys see? Did you guys see any of that were any different? Lords of No Rings. That was another good one.
I thought Lords of No Rings was fantastic, and I'm not a big Lord of the Rings guy, but I thought that one was fantastic because it pulls at the heartstrings and hits true to the core of what we are as Minnesota Vikings fans. I was really having a tough time coming up with something real current. The only thing I kept thinking about was in iterations behind the scenes, as we told you two, at one point we thought maybe we would name this spinoff show Wide Left.
Yes.
And instead we settled on Before We Die, which I think has been fantastic and is wonderful. But could you just go with Wide Left? Could the name of your fantasy team be Wide Left? It seems very, very apropos if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan.
I have to say, I don't like the names that make fun of the Vikings ever winning a Super Bowl. It hurts my feelings and it makes me angry. So I can't get on board with the Lord of No Rings. Also, this is a very controversial take of mine. I think the Lord of the Rings movies are overrated. You know, I'm sorry to anyone out there that loves them. I think they're a bit overrated.
Preach.
I've never seen them.
It was hard for Thor to get through those. I agreed to go with my father and my brother to one of them, and it was the thing where like 45 minutes into it, I'm just checking Twitter, you know, and trying to make the light of the phone not enough to distract the people next to me. It was tough to get through. Maybe a little long, Peter Jackson. Maybe a little.
I mean, Thor, you came up with some pretty good names yourself. Tiny Dantzler, Right Stuff, Munt Cake, Boyd Where Prohibited. I mean, not too bad, man. How many of these names that you, and again, we'll share these on our Twitter. Be sure you're following me, Jesse Pierce, Ross Brendel, and obviously Purple Daily and Score North as well. But Thor, where are these names that you're actually using? They have to be. You couldn't have just come up with them in addition to names that you have.
Well, these are all Thor originals. Mini Cinta. I was pretty proud of as well. I wish you had a name on the Vikings where it's. Remember when they used to do Mary Chris Moss? You know, and then you those were fabulous. We'll have to wait on that, but I like that one. I had to give a shout out to my boy Shannon Sullivan with all the policing he's been doing on Twitter over the last couple of weeks, going at people, criticizing him. Shannon Sullivan, Twitter police. You know, you could have a nice little logo of Shannon overlooking Twitter with his police hat on. Then, you know, we got the new guy, the UDFA that made the team, Luigi Villain, which it reminds you of playing Mario, where, you know, they had some of the games where you had like the inverse of every character and you had the villain version of them. And so like the Luigi villain in the game is named Waluigi. So, you know, like Luigi Waluigi villain, you know, was another one. Munt Cake, Deer Hunter. That's a shout out to Christopher Walken. That's just a good one. I don't have friends. I have family. That's a shout out to Vin Diesel and the Fast and the Furious franchise, which is a personal favorite of mine.
Let's keep with the fantasy football theme. Again, we have another episode on Thursday where we will go all X's and O's on your guys' butts about Green Bay, Minnesota. But
I want to talk some player props as well on that one. They haven't come out yet, but by the time we get to the Thursday show, the sports books will have those out. I want to go prop by prop, over under on the passing yards, rushing yards, the whole gamut.
I love it. We're going deep, but sticking with the fantasy football, what's your guys' like strategy? Do you pick Vikings as the homerism? Do you pick them when Justin Jefferson easily 4 anyway, right? I mean, that just works out well, but I mean, are you trying to load up with Vikings? Or are you trying to win? And, you know, like what's the strategy for you guys?
Well,
I'll go first here really quickly, Thor. The only thing I do is I avoid taking Green Bay Packers if I can, because I don't want to cheer for them.
Fair.
I'll take them if I absolutely have to and the board dictates it, but I really try and avoid doing that. Thor, the floor is yours. My sincerest apologies for cutting you off.
No, that's one of your best takes, Ross. I have avoided taking.
We'll keep you around for that in general.
Yeah. You know, and here's the crazy thing: you can win fantasy football league championships without Green Bay Packers. I've been doing it for over a decade, so try it out at home. It's a fun time. Then you don't have to tune into the Packer games either. You know, you just don't have to check on them. It's a good time. This year, maybe not a good time to take them anyway. But I mean, in the home leagues, it's always been tough to get the Viking guys, right? Because you have to pay the Viking tax when you're with your buddies that are from Minnesota. In the national leagues I do, or the ones with other, you know, experts or other analysts or whatever, it's much easier to get the Vikings down to me. I was excited are you guys aware of the Scott Fish Bowl? The big, with all the different leagues and stuff. This year, Scott did a really, really cool thing where you always in the past had the drafts online, like on what's it called, My Fantasy Football League or whatever that thing is called. This year he did live drafts as well at like 6 different cities, and we're just lucky enough in the Twin Cities that Fish happens to live here, so of course we were getting one of the live drafts. So anyhow, at the live draft I went in and I was picking I think 4th or something like that, and then on the way back you have to wait for a long time. And so I didn't think that I would get Jefferson because everyone else in the room was Vikings fans. But it just so happened in my league that no one had taken a wide receiver before that. So I popped Justin Jefferson real quick when it got to me in the second round, because I think he's going to be the wide receiver one in fantasy this year. But
yeah,
just in general, like, it's hard for me to remove myself from like what I know, or like the statistical projections or the analytical part of my mind. But I'll pay a little bit of a tax for most Vikings. I would say that. Sure. I can't go too far ahead, over their import, but I'll pay a little bit of a tax to get one for sure, especially if I'm bullish on a guy. Super bullish on Jefferson this year, super bullish on Dalvin Cook for sure in particular.
Yes. I got Dalvin Cook. My backs are looking pretty good. Actually, my wide receiver depth on my fantasy team far better. But I like my running backs, my starting backs, Cook, and I forget who the other one is. But I'm okay with my team. I'm in one league. This is the first year ever that I'm only in one league, which is it's weird to me, but I like it. I'm kind of excited, so I can really go all in, pay attention. I'm a former back-to-back fantasy champion in another league, and they didn't
brag
because I'm good. So I get it. Whatever, it's fine.
There's
nothing sweeter, and I will play the girl card here. There is nothing sweeter than being the only girl in the league and just destroying all the guys in it. And it's just, it feels good. I love it. That's my thing.
Thor, how early is too early to draft Kirk Cousins' favorite weapon, CJ Ham?
Look, I just want to be in a league deep enough where CJ Ham is relevant, and I am especially in college. I run this college fantasy football league that's 50 teams. We have 5 10-team divisions, and we don't use duplicate players. So the 50 teams, your only player pool is the 131 FBS teams. I would love to be in an NFL league that's deep, where like players like that are relevant, because in that 50-team college league, you're talking like the Gopher third string running back is owned in that thing. It's ridiculous. It's awesome.
That is ridiculous. Yeah. Do you just create this on your? I need to know more about this now. Again,
I created it
as a college, which somebody cleverly had called me a milk, but with like a C in there. Man, I love college football, which I was like, that's pretty clever. I enjoy that. Nope. So I need to know more about this. Like, you made it yourself. Like, it's obviously not available. Like, you can't do this like for real, right? Or can you now?
Well, no.
College, yeah.
Yeah, no, I run it on Fantrax. Oh wow, I have the I have. Did you hear what my alarm?
I did.
That was inadvertent, but every day when Thor gets up, this is why I run through walls, because that's what I wake up to every morning. I just get so jacked or whatever. But no, so this league, I played college fantasy leagues going back 15 years or whatever. The first website that did them was CBS. I don't think CBS runs college fantasy anymore, but we did it there initially. But I started to wonder, in the NFL, you would be in like, say, a 16-team league, which at the time that was considered a big league. And you're like, 16 teams can for sure be supported by 30 NFL teams, which that's what it was at the time. Mm-hmm. So I started to think, you have 130 FBS teams. The leagues are way too shallow if you just have like 12 or 14 guys. You almost have to isolate it to either Power 5 or to G5, to make it interesting enough like that. But then I started to think, with 130 teams, how many fantasy teams would that support without it becoming like problematic with the numbers? Like, for instance, with the quarterbacks, you're going to run out of quarterbacks at a certain point. So initially with that league, I ended up setting it at the roster limit at 2 for quarterbacks. Then we went up to 3, figured it could support it. But yeah, we what I needed was a website that had the functionality to allow you to run it. And then when Fantrax started doing college fantasy, I was able to do that. You have to start it out with 5 different 10-team drafts. You put a Power 5 conference and a G5 conference into each one, and then you end up having 26 per conference, 26 real teams that the player pool for those 10 guys to draft out of. It's a lot of fun.
I like it. If you're given, so we talked about not picking Packers in our fantasy team, but I don't
pick Badgers either, by the way. This is a rule for all.
I don't pick Hawkeyes
sports
either, so that's just my thing.
I don't pick Cyclones neither.
That's why. You would have taken Breece Hall if you could, wouldn't you? Did you take Breece Hall?
Look at this mug right here. Well, yeah, but he's no longer, infected by the whatever's in the air in Ames. Now he's off in New York.
I just want to point out. I want to point out, I don't know what mug is uglier, the one I'm staring at in Thor or the one he just held up with the Hawkeyes.
Oh,
how dare you?
So given though, all right. So if we're going head to head, Green Bay, Minnesota, keeping with rivalry week, again, we will dive into that game come Thursday's record. But let's play a little fantasy football, Vikings versus Packers here. Who are you taking at quarterback? Are you taking Kirk Cousins or would you take A-Rod?
I'm taking Cousins. Rodgers doesn't have Devontae Adams anymore. He doesn't have any receivers. And by the way, when we get to receivers for this,
you want to talk about Alan Lazard? I mean, he's also a Cyclone and a Packer.
if it was a fantasy draft between Vikings receivers and Packers receivers, I don't think the first Packer was getting picked till like the 5th pick.
I mean, that's probably true too.
Their receiving core is absolute dog, you know what. And there's been some questions about the Vikings secondary. Yeah. Rodgers going to have to play pretty well to exploit, if let's say Dantzler doesn't come out and play as well as we want to in week 1 or whatever, the receiving core for the Packers is not going to be creating much separation for Rodgers this year. So there's going to be a lot in his hands.
Obviously, I understand you don't pick offensive lines, but would you pick the Vikings offensive line or the Packers offensive line?
Oh, that one's closer. I mean, I think you probably have to go Packers for now, as much as I hate to say it, but I do expect the Vikings line to be better this year. We've talked about the ways that you can do that with Bradbury that are independent of, Bradbury, like ways that you can scheme them better. You're getting the upgrade at guard for sure with Ingram. Cleveland and O'Neal should be better. And Darisaw, by all accounts, is going to take an enormous jump this year. So they're going to be qualitatively better. But like heading into the season, you probably just have to, go with the old guard on that one until we see it.
That's fair. And then how about defense? Because the Packers 13th last year. They get back their top cornerback in J.R. Alexander. They've got Eric Stokes and Douglas coming out, and we kind of know where the defense is at for the Vikings. Again, very dependent on 2 players in particular, but where would you take that? Would you take Packers defense or Vikings defense?
I think you probably have to side with the Packers heading in again. The Vikings defense last year was not very good, and we're all sort of optimistic that several of these positions are going to be upgraded because of the guys that they brought in, and then maybe even that the scheme will be more conducive to the talent that they're switching out of the 3-4 and then attacking with the edge rushers on both sides. That will be more conducive for the personnel on hand than the stuff that Zimmer was doing, those defenses that were imploding down the stretch in the games last year. But until we see the Vikings theoretically make a jump into the high teens, or hopefully in the complete middle of the pack, would be great, because if they could do that, they're a big time contender. But until we see that, you have to side with the Packers on that one too.
And then final one before I let you speak, Ross. I'll let you speak. Raise your hand next time, please. Matt LaFleur.
I'm just going to mute myself.
I know. Matt LaFleur or Kevin O'Connell. Which coach are you taking? Both former offensive coordinators under Sean McVay with the Rams. Both, I'll say it, good-looking gentlemen as well. Which coach you going with?
Yeah, scream it from the mountaintops. I'm going with O'Connell. I've never been that impressed with LaFleur. He's made some wonky in-game decisions where it's not hindsight where you're questioning it. It's like in the moment. What was that one with the kick of the field goal and the nonsense there? All kinds of weird decisions that he does. It seems like the Packers, they always have the good quarterbacks going back 30 years. Yeah. But it seems like the head coaches that they've had working for them they're just not able to take advantage of the ingrained advantage that you get from having Pro Bowl quarterback play for 30 straight years. I'm not the highest on LaFleur, and I'm pretty bullish on O'Connell and the new administration.
I like it. All right, Ross.
Missing Crosby or Greg Joseph Summer? Who you got?
Ooh.
Joseph for sure. Joseph for sure. Yeah, I mean, Crosby, when he came out of Colorado, he's like the young gun hotshot fella. But now that guy's been – he's older than dirt now, like that. And I don't know if they're going to be able to trust that guy.
Isn't he younger than us?
Well, you didn't have to say that.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, you didn't have to say that. Yes, he is. But I mean, Crosby is not going to be able to kick the ball over 45 yards this year. And our boy JoJo, he looked pretty good this summer. Pretty good in camp.
I like it. See, that's fun. Again, it's going to be a heck of a matchup this Sunday when Minnesota hosts Green Bay. More of that on Thursday. At the end of the day, guys, I think it's going to come down to Vikings offense versus Packers defense, right? Which makes sense. It probably sounds like a very duh, Jesse, you're dumb. But I'm just saying, like, their defense is stronger than Minnesota's defense, but Vikings have the offensive advantage. So it's going to be a good one. I'm excited.
Super excited. Yeah, super duper excited. I'm excited to make some bets on the game too. Excited for that prop market to open up. I'm excited about the whole thing, getting the full NFL thing back, but getting an opening game like this, what a treat. I mean, this is going to be super fun on Sunday. Getting to host the Packers in the first game with your new administration. It's going to be super exciting.
Can't beat it. Can't beat rivalry week. And again, it's double rivalry week for me with Iowa State game on Saturday. Green Bay, Minnesota. Oh, yeah. I'm so excited. It's just my favorite. We love it. All right. Before we end this episode, as always, we will wrap it up with a couple before we dies, which is basically a prediction of before we die. We do this each and every episode. So Ross, why don't you kick it off since I was rudely cutting you off most of today's episode?
Oh, well, I may have been rudely hopping in, so we'll agree to disagree on our rudeness. Yeah. Before we die, I'm calling an audible on what I had. I'll save mine for a different week. Before we die, I will join Thor's college football fantasy league.
Love it.
100% I will, and I want to encourage everybody, and maybe we'll read some of these on Thursday. If you're watching on YouTube, give us your Minnesota Vikings themed fantasy football team names, and maybe we'll read some of them on Thursday.
Heck yeah, I like it. All right, I'll take that a step further. I'm just going to piggyback off that. Before we die, I'm not just going to play in Thor's college football. I'm going to win
Whoa!
fantasy. So,
whoa!
Let's go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's a tough act to follow. Mine isn't as much a prediction. In fact, it's something that I know is not going to happen. But this is something that I want to happen before I die. You see in the lead up to this week, and every time that the Vikings play the Packers, you see these Packer fans on Twitter making all these stupid retread jokes where it'll be like an empty trophy case. And it'll be like, the Vikings Super Bowl win since, yada, yada. It's, welcome to Viking Super Bowl week, and stuff like that. They're always making fun of the Vikings for not winning a Super Bowl. Before I die, I want Packer fans to realize that winning 2 Super Bowls over a 30-year period where your quarterbacks were Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers is not that impressive. So stop beating your chest. We'll be seeing you on the field this season.
I like it. Just a straight up call out to all Packers fans who I'm sure listen to this religiously, because why wouldn't you? It's all about Vikings again.
We're huge in Green Bay.
We're huge in Green Bay. Again, people thinking that I'm a Packers fan, like, no, let's not say that. I'm a realist.
I wouldn't work with you if you were a Packer fan.
No.
That's how you know out there.
I mean, I like the color green. That's about it. I don't like green and yellow unless it's a North Stars variation.
Better not be anything this week, though. No green this week.
You guys are going to be really excited. So what I actually did over the course of the weekend, so as you guys all know, I have very old crappy jerseys. That's what I got. I got a Carson Palmer jersey. I've got a Randy Moss jersey. I'm talking like the Target.
Those are retro.
Letters
They're not crappy.
Yeah, those are good jerseys.
So I got those, but I also have 2 Purple People Eater sweatshirts that I've always had. That's all I've really ever worn on Vikings Day. Usually it's the Moss jersey. So I went to thrift shopping and loaded up, my friends, with some vintage Vikings that I am super excited to wear.
Love it.
Including my new favorite jersey, a Chris Carter jersey, a real nice Chris Carter jersey. Super jacked about that. So I will be rocking them. There's going to be a sick coat maybe in the action. Maybe we're talking starter jackets. You'll have to watch to see. I thought you guys would all be very proud of the way I'm trying to transform and show you guys my purple more often, because I'm here for you. We are here for you every Monday, every Thursday before we die on Purple Daily and Score North. Be sure to check out all of our friends and their shows, Talkin' Vikings, every day of the week. It's awesome. You love it. We love you guys, most of you. Let
me see your eyes, Thor. Let me see those blue eyes.
Thank you for appreciating my beauty once in a while, too. Even if I can't pronounce names correctly, at least I win you back in some manner or another. So as always, leave your comments. As Ross had mentioned, toss in some fantasy football names. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know other things you'd love for us to talk about as we dive into the season here and rivalry week against Green Bay. I'm Jesse Pierce. He's Thor Nystrom. He's Ross Brendel. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Bye.
Skull.